Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Get a Clue Marketing Show. My name is David D, and we have a special encore presentation for you today. And we have a very special guest. Jeff Tockman is here from Jeff Tockman Consulting, and he's going to go over more in depth about how to get referrals. And he's got an 8-step process that he uses to get quality referrals so that he can get more business, and he teaches you how to do that. So, Jeff, you're the first guest of the new year, so I'm excited to have you on for the show, and we're looking for a prosperous new year. How about you?
I'm excited. Happy New Year. Happy 2012.
Yes.
And, more and better.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that you're going to go over is about referrals and how to get a better quality referral. Now, I've heard somebody say that, asking for people for referrals is almost like asking a friend to go to church with them on Sunday morning. And, it's really uncomfortable. And, hopefully with your steps that you can guide us through and make that easier, make an easier process. So without further ado, let's get started with the 8-step process.
Well, yeah, but before the 8 steps, I would just want to touch on what you just said there, which is setting the correct expectations. Mm-hmm. Most of my work as a consultant is helping people with networking and referrals. And, well, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, a lot of people see networking and referrals as, oh, that's easy. I just need to do it more. So it's never, in their own mind, about the quality. It's always about the quantity. I'm great at that. I just need to do it more. Mm-hmm. And, of course, how realistic is that? How many golfers do you know who never play golf but are great at it? How many tennis players do you know that are people who are fantastic at tennis but never actually play? It just doesn't work that way in the world. So let's realize that getting referrals, doing networking are the kind of things that just about anyone can do. Just about anyone can play golf or play tennis. But to be really good at it, it's going to take a lot of work. And especially if you're doing it for business, treat it that way. Specifically on what you talked about with the referrals, and when you mentioned the church, I think the thing that I'd mention is it has to do with people's emotions and feelings. So let's not pretend that this is just a business transaction, that there's no emotions involved. When you're asking for a referral, what you're really asking for is a transfer of a relationship. And when you're talking about relationships, then of course emotions and human thoughts get involved in that. So when you're asking someone for money or their time or their energy, of course, that might make them a little bit uncomfortable and resistant. So expect the same thing when you're asking for referrals. To transfer a relationship from one person to another is a big thing to ask for. So let's set up the expectations correct. It's going to be tough to do. And with that in mind, why not have a tool to use? Why not have something to use? It's maybe not a perfect tool, but something that can help you do it a little bit better by having a process, give you some steps to follow. And that's really the idea here with the referral 8-step process, is that if you're good at all 8 of these steps and they really all make sense to you, then you're going to be much better prepared to go into a conversation, hopefully to follow it all 8 steps through. But even if you don't, you could probably take some of the steps and use those. Tell me, what do you think about what I just said, David, about referrals being a really difficult thing to actually get?
Well, it is, and especially for me personally. I remember doing sales presentations. I was closed a sale, and we were always trained to, before you leave, try to get 5 referrals, to expand your business and to ask for that. And I was always uncomfortable, to be honest with you, because it's, you're asking this person right off the bat and out of the blue, oh, by the way, do you have 5 people that you know that can use this service? And, to me, it was just uncomfortable, and I realized that it's important, but I never could overcome that hurdle of just coming out of the blue and asking them. Because here's the thing, I remember, giving referrals to people, okay, and of friends and people that I know that can do a job, and they screwed it up, okay, and so I'm very hesitant to give referrals, me personally, because it's my name on the line, okay? And so I have a hard time giving referrals just because of that. Because I was let down in the past. So But anyway, so that's all part of it too. And I don't want to, but
Yeah.
I understand it's key for business and things like that. But so
let me touch on a couple of things you said there. One of the things is about it being at the end, and the other one is about the asking for the referrals, the sort of the parameter, I guess you will, or the context in which you're asking. First thing is, one suggestion I have right off the bat before we get to the 8 steps is, as you said, I think your sales manager said, at the end of the meeting, ask them for 5 referrals. I would say make it at least second to last, or if not earlier. I think when people leave referrals to the end of the conversation, it makes it one of those throwaway conversations. Oh, thank you so much for the meeting. Let's shuffle our papers, put them together, and shake hands. Oh, by the way, let me know if you know anyone. That's okay. It's better than nothing, but it's not going to really work, honestly. You're not going to get a lot of referrals that way, that sort of throwaway line, or do you know anyone, yes or no? Because people are generally going to say no. So try to make it at least second to last. Maybe put it on a written agenda if you have one for the meeting so that you make sure to cover it. Treat it as something important as part of your process. The other thing in terms of context is if you're thinking about getting referrals, of course they're going to benefit you, right? If I'm a consultant and you're my client and you give me a referral to another person, that other person's going to pay me, I'm going to benefit. So if you're thinking about referrals only for yourself, then it might come across that way. If you're thinking about referrals in the context of for the benefit of the client, in other words, what's the value for that client, and then who else can we provide that value to? Who else really needs this? So if it is a valuable product or service, then thinking about who else needs that benefit. So we're thinking about it from the perspective of the referral person, the person who's being referred. So that's just another context to think about. And the 8 steps will address that. So let me get right into it. The first step, and I know you're going to put it up on the screen, is to ask people about the value of your product or service. I think this one gets a gold star out of the 8. There's a couple other ones that are really important. And the reason is because this is a great question to ask whether or not you're even asking for referrals or ever plan to get any. If you're asking someone about the value of your business, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about what's in their mind, about what's working, what's not. And of course, for referrals, you want to try and focus on the positive things, but it's worth getting both, right? Tell me what's working, tell me what's not, tell me what you like, tell me what you think could be improved, how could I do better for you? These kinds of questions, I don't mean to say the way it's phrased on the screen is the only way to ask it, but you're trying to get a sense of their perception of the value. Again, if they have some perception of the value, then they're going to be able to imagine someone else receiving that value and how it would benefit that other person. So that's the first question. Dave, give me an example. If you were working with a client and then asking them about the value of your product or service, how would you ask it? Well, how would you phrase that question?
Well, I mean, I would say ask them if they have been, received the results. Are you getting results from this service? Right?
Okay, I think that's a great premise to thinking about the results, because the results really puts them in the mindset of the value that they're receiving. What's the result? What's the benefit? What's the value? That's another good word for it. The one thing I'd caution in an ad here is, especially, and this goes for pretty much all questions that we ask, try to make it open-ended. Try to allow them to articulate the words that make sense. In other words, if I say, did you have a nice time this weekend? You'd say yes. And then I think, okay, you had a nice time. Whereas if I said, how was your weekend? You might not have ever used the word nice. The key here is an open-ended question that allows the other person to share with you what's inside their mind. Whereas if you ask a closed-ended question, a yes or no, they can say yes, but it's not as revealing. You certainly know whether it's yes or no, but you don't know as much. So that's the other thing with this question. What do you think is the value? What kind of results are you getting? And let them describe the results as opposed to just saying, yes, I'm getting results. And then as it says on the screen, note their words. So what does that mean? If I say, what do you think is the value? And you say that the value was that it's a really snazzy product or service, I want to note that word snazzy. Now, of course, I'm using the word snazzy. I'm being a little silly here. But that word snazzy that client or customer used, that came from their mind. I never said snazzy. They said snazzy. So that word, snazzy, I want to try and grab that and use that word later in the conversation because that was what's in their mind. They're going to relate to that because it's their word. Be careful here. Don't try to paraphrase them. Don't try to rephrase what they said. Whatever they said, they meant. If you want to ask for more clarification from them with their words, that's fine, but ask in another open-ended way. Let them share with you really what they think is the value of the product or service. All right, so let's go on to the next step. The first one was that gold star, really important, whether or not you're asking for referrals, make sure to note their words. The second one is not as important, but I think a nice little helpful tip here, which is that if something is so important to you, it's good to express that to the person you're talking to so that they understand, they have the clear expectation. So I think most people in the audience who are listening to this, if I ask a question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for you to get referrals for your business? For 2012, being it is right here in the beginning of January, for 2012, how important is getting referrals for your business going to be? 1, it doesn't really matter at all. I don't care. 10, it really matters a lot, and it's really important to drive my business. It's one of the most important things I'm going to do to get my best customers and clients. Most people are probably going to be 7, 8, 9, 10 on that scale. So it is an important thing. I would hope that most people would see it as a 9 or a 10. I, of course, do, but I'm a little biased being a referral consultant. But most people, I think, feel that getting referrals is really important. So what I'm saying here in step number 2 is tell them that. Be clear that we're about to have a really important conversation. This matters to me, this matters to my business, and it matters that I'm going to be able to provide value to you and that we can share this with other people that you think could benefit from it. So that's a really important step. So the next step, it's important to let them know that you're about to talk about something important. And I think what that does is it mitigates some of the problems that you might otherwise encounter. I don't know about you, but I've been in referral conversations in the past where someone, you can feel them squirming a little bit. They want to get out of the conversation. They want to say, all right, let me talk to you about it. Let me talk to them. I'll call you back. They want to get out of the conversation.
That happens a lot.
Of course. Right, and that goes to the expectations that we said. This is uncomfortable. People are going to squirm. Yeah. So what this is meant to do, this step, all these steps are really meant to mitigate some of that discomfort. It's not going to remove it. They're still going to be human. It's still going to be tough to ask somebody for money, their time, their energy, or their relationships. It's going to be hard to get those things from people. They're going to be uncomfortable, but these steps should hopefully mitigate that. So by saying, tell me about the value you perceive, and then saying, hey, I have something important I want to talk with you about, it just makes it a little less likely that they're going to back out. This next step, number 3, is to basically ask them for permission. And this kind of is a closed-ended question. You can ask it in an open-ended way, but basically you want to know, yes or no, is it okay to talk about this? Before you get in and start saying, who do you know, or do you have any referrals, those kind of questions, before you do that, let's ask permission to have the conversation. And by doing that, again, it'll make it a little bit less likely for them to back out once they've said yes. Now, if they say no, you might want to find out why. So if I say, what's the value? You say, well, it's a very professional service that you provide. They say, I have something important to ask you. They say, okay, what is it? And you say, I'd like to ask your permission to brainstorm with you about other people you know that you might be able to connect me to who might also see the same benefit that you saw of getting such a professional service. If they say, well, no, I don't want to talk about that, then it's good reason to find out, a good thing to find out the reason for that. So you might want to go back to that first question and review, did they really tell you the truth about the value or not? In other words, if they said, yeah, it's fantastic, but then they won't give you any referrals, maybe there's a disconnect there. Or perhaps they've been burnt in the past by giving referrals, as I think you mentioned earlier.
I did.
That sometimes given a referral before and I got burned. You know, the guy who I gave the referral to got all these calls started happening again and again and again, and that made them uncomfortable and me uncomfortable. So I just don't do it as a matter of policy. You need to find out someone's perception about that.
So what happens?
Or it might just be something.
Let's follow that through. What would you say if he's uncomfortable and he doesn't want to give you referrals at that time? What do you say?
Absolutely. Let me just cover the third one first. The other one is it might be that they just don't have time. Yeah, I'd love to give you referrals, but I got to go. It's 8:30 and I got an 8:32 meeting. You know, so it might not be that they don't want to give you referrals. It might just be, yeah, I want to have that conversation with you, but let's not brainstorm about that right now. So how do you respond to that, to your question? One is that you want to seek to understand first. Be careful not to assume too much. Oh, okay, this guy said no, so I'll never ask him for referrals again, otherwise it's going to hurt my relationship with him. Don't go so far, and that's possible, but don't go so far to assume that it's going to be the worst of the worst every time. Seek to understand. I think that was Covey or someone who said that. It's one of those highly effective rules or something, but you really do want to understand. So you might say, so tell me about that. I've had experience before where people were uncomfortable talking about brainstorming for other people to connect me to because either they've been burnt in the past, or maybe the expectations weren't right, or they were worried about what was going to happen. Tell me, what's the issue for you? And just ask that in an open-ended way, and let them tell you. Let them tell you what the concern is or why they can't brainstorm right now.
Say it with video.